Are people with mental health problems more violent, or do they act differently than those without these illnesses?
I feel like they can. Some can and some can't.
Okay. If people work hard enough, can they snap out of mental health illnesses?
I believe so, yeah.
Do mental illnesses last forever?
I think it depends on the circumstances, but I'm sure that they could.
And can you list 3 types of mental health illnesses besides anxiety and depression?
Off the top of my head, I cannot.
Are people with mental health problems more violent, or do they act differently than those without these illnesses?
In my opinion, yes, they can be more violent. I have experienced it, and are they normal, or are they...
Do they act differently than those without mental health problems?
I feel as if, yes, depending on the problem and depending on the severity of the problem.
Do mental health illnesses last forever?
Some of them are treatable, in my opinion, but just like being born with an arrhythmia in your heart, you're gonna deal with it for your life.
Can you list 3 types of mental health issues besides anxiety and depression?
Schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and let's see. Trying to think of one more. I don't think I know another one.
Can children have mental health problems?
Yes.
Are people with mental health problems more violent, or do they act differently than those without mental health problems?
They act differently. They don't necessarily act violent.
How would you say they act differently?
Mental illness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they sometimes don't have like the same understanding of what's going on around them, but they usually figure it out, but sometimes just at a slower rate.
Do mental health illnesses last forever?
In some ways, yes, because you can't really. I mean, you can, but like also at the same time, you can't really outgrow. Like you just find ways to cope and become a better person.
Can you list 3 types of mental health issues besides anxiety and depression?
I should know this, but I don't.
How important would you say mental health problems were to like the faculty at your high school?
Probably not too important. We didn't go over it much.
Did you have any classes about mental health in your high school?
We had a brief section, I remember, in middle school, but that was about it.
How common were mental health issues in your high school?
Probably not as prevalent as I think that might be, but I'm sure that it did affect a few people.
Is mental health illness commonly seen by others as a sign of weakness?
I think it could be, but personally, no, I don't think it is.
Okay. And have you ever talked about mental health with your parents or your friends?
I have, yes.
Have you learned about mental health in your high school?
I came from a Catholic college preparatory high school, so it was discussed, but not at length. It was just presented that there are such things, but it was not discussed in length.
How important was the issue of mental health to the faculty at your high school?
We had counselors on hand, but to be honest with you, teachers really didn't give a shit. Oh, am I not allowed to say that? Teachers really didn't care. Pardon my French. Really didn't care. Students were presented with doctor's notes to their teachers about, absences, and the teachers were not really accepting of that. When my friends had bad anxiety and had multiple anxiety attacks, and stayed home from school due to them, and the teacher did not adjust her attendance policy accordingly and wound up failing the course. So it probably wasn't that important.
How common would you say mental health issues were at your high school?
I think mental health issues in a whole in this country is becoming more of a growing thing. I don't think that, let's go back to like 1960, right, where there was no such thing as most of these issues, but that's not true. It just wasn't discussed. It wasn't brought up. Most people were just institutionalized. But in my high school, I think just like with any with any academic institution, there's going to be its fair share of people that have their problems and don't. In my high school, I feel like there wasn't many, because you had to take such a rigorous examination to get into the school. So I feel like the odds were kind of stacked against some people.
And is mental health illness commonly seen by others as a sign of weakness?
Nowadays it seems that it's more prevalent. I feel like it's not necessarily a sign of weakness. I think it's a sign of that the person is an outcast. Like, oh, that person, have pity on that person. They have depression. You don't want to say something to them. But that's besides the point.
Did your high school have any classes about mental health?
No.
How important would you say mental health issues were to the faculty at your school?
Not really important.
How common were mental health issues in your high school?
What do you mean by that?
Like, were there a lot of students, do you think, who were suffering from mental health issues?
I would say yes, but there's nothing really to help them, I feel like, at our school.
Have you ever talked about mental health with your parents or your friends?
I've talked about it with my friends and a little bit with my parents.
Is mental illness commonly seen by others as a sign of weakness?
Definitely from my experience, I feel like some of my friends, especially in high school, thought of it as a sign of weakness, but I feel like as I've gone into college, my friends and people around me don't see it that way.
Did your high school have any classes on mental health?
No.
How important was the issue of mental health to the people at your high school?
To the teachers, it was very important and was seen as a priority because we had a learning center for people who had a mental illness so that they would get accommodations on any assignment or test. But to the peers, it wasn't really seen as a priority because nobody was upfront about if they had a mental illness or not.
How common were mental health issues at your high school?
I'm not sure because nobody was upfront on whether they had a mental illness or not.
Have you ever talked about mental health issues with your parents or friends?
No.
Is mental health commonly seen by others as a sign of weakness?
Yes, but people won't come right out and say that it's a weakness, but they'll think it subconsciously and then end up treating the person differently.